welcome to this deep dive. We've sifted through a stack of information, and well, our job today is to pull out the really crucial insights just for you.
That's right. And today, we're really zeroing in on a fascinating situation. It's been unfolding in Jharkhand, India.
And it centers specifically around the Jharkhand Public Service Commission, the JPSC, as you'll probably hear us call it.
Exactly. Now, try to picture this. You've got this really high-stakes process, right? Recruiting people for important government jobs.
Super important stuff.
Yeah, and it hits this major snag. And the reason, it sounds almost mundane, something frustratingly common. A technical glitch.
But I mean, this isn't just a story about, a computer messing up. It goes much deeper.
Oh, absolutely. It's about people's dreams. It's about bureaucracy, often impenetrable bureaucracy, and it's really about this fight for basic fairness.
The details we've been looking into, they lay out this specific case, a real saga that actually just recently wrapped up with a pretty significant court ruling in Ranchi.
A very significant ruling, yeah.
So our mission today, we're going to unpack this whole story. We want to understand exactly what went wrong, step by step.
See how the system, particularly the courts, responded.
And then, maybe most importantly, try to figure out what this one case tells us about the bigger picture. For job aspirants, for institutions like the JPSC.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so to really get the gravity of this, we probably need to rewind a bit. Go back in time.
Right, let's set the scene. Picture it. 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a specific person here, Manoj Kumar Kachhap.
He's a candidate from Jharkhand's scheduled tribe community. Bright guy, ambitious.
And he had his sights set on a very particular role, assistant professor in Nagpuri language.
Yeah, not just any professorship, a specific, important role, culturally significant for the region.
Represents a real opportunity, you'd imagine, professionally, personally.
Definitely. And the opportunity came through the JPSC. They advertised 4 of these assistant professor positions.
Okay, so 4 spots open.
Right. So Manoj does what you do. He applies online, fills everything out, follows all the steps.
Ticks all the boxes.
And crucially, pays the online application fee. Does everything right, seemingly.
And it wasn't just about submitting the form. He apparently really excelled in the next stage.
Oh, absolutely. The JPSC did an academic evaluation looking at qualifications, experience, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
He crushed it.
No.
Scored an impressive 72.10 out of a possible 85.
Wow, 72 out of 85. That's really high.
It is, over 80%. Based purely on merit, at that point, you'd think, okay, clear path forward. He should definitely be getting an interview call.
A real shoo-in, you'd imagine.
You would think.
Yeah.
But this is exactly where the system, or maybe a flaw in the system, threw this massive curveball.
What happened?
When the JPSC put out the shortlist, the list of candidates called for interviews, Manoj's name just wasn't there.
Gone, despite that score.
Completely missing, despite, that stellar academic performance.
So why? What was the reason given?
Well, eventually, the reason that came out was just incredibly frustrating. The official line was a technical glitch.
A technical glitch, that's it.
Basically, yeah. Apparently, that online payment he made for the application fee, the one he was sure went through okay on his end.
Right.
It just hadn't registered properly or maybe wasn't reconciled correctly in the JPSC's bank account. Something went wrong on their side with the payment confirmation.
Okay, but surely they'd contact him.
Yeah.
Or fix it, if he scored that high.
You'd think so, but that's where it gets really difficult. Instead of saying, hey, it looks like a technical issue on our end, let's sort this out, or even just reaching out to him.
Especially with that score, yeah.
Right. They just invalidated his entire application.
Validated. Just like that.
Just like that. And apparently no notification sent to him about it. No heads up saying your payment didn't register, your application is void. Just silence and exclusion.
Man. Imagine putting in all that effort, getting that score, and then you're just out because of a glitch, and you don't even know why immediately.
It's that classic bureaucratic wall, isn't it? Feels impossible to climb sometimes.
So what did Manoj do? He obviously didn't just accept that.
No, he definitely didn't. This is where his fight really begins. He took his case straight to the Jharkhand High Court.
Okay, the legal road.
Filed a writ petition, basically asking the High Court to step in, review what the JPSC did, and demand they fix this injustice.
And what was the court's initial reaction?
That was crucial. A single judge bench heard his case and issued a really important interim order.
Interim, meaning temporary.
Yeah, while the main case was still being argued, the judge ordered the JPSC to let Manoj participate in the interview process.
Ah, so he got his chance at interview after all.
Exactly. The court ensured he wouldn't lose the immediate opportunity just because the legal wheels turned slowly.
Did the JPSC comply?
They did. They had to follow the court order. So Manoj finally gets his interview.
And how did that go? This is kind of the turning point, right?
It really is. Because he didn't just show up. He apparently excelled in the interview, too. Really showed what he could do.
He seized the opportunity.
He absolutely did. And get this. The interview marks were collected by the court, kept under wraps in a sealed envelope while the case proceeded. Adds a bit of drama, right?
Definitely. So what happened when they finally opened the envelope?
Well, later on, when the court looked at those sealed marks as part of the final judgment, the result was pretty stunning.
Don't keep us in suspense.
Manoj hadn't just done well in the interview. When you combined his interview score with that already high academic score, he had actually topped the entire selection process.
Topped it. The whole thing.
The absolute highest score among all candidates for those Nagpuri language assistant professor positions.
So the guy they kicked out because of a payment glitch
Turned out to be the most qualified candidate. By their own metrics, once he got the chance to complete the process.
That is quite something. It just perfectly illustrates how an administrative error, a glitch, could have denied the most meritorious person the job.
Precisely. It's a stark example.
Which brings us forward then to the final verdict, June 13th, 2025, in Ranchi.
That's the date. The Jharkhand High Court's division bench, so a higher bench, usually 2 or more judges, reviewing the case led by the Chief Justice M.S. Ramachandra Rao, they delivered the final word.
And what was the final word? They considered JPSC's appeal, right? JPSC must have appealed the single judge's order.
They did. JPSC appealed, trying to justify their initial decision, but the division bench firmly dismissed that appeal.
Dismissed it. So they sided with Manoj.
Unequivocally. They upheld the single judge's order. Manoj Kumar Kachhap must be appointed.
Okay, justice served, finally.
But wait, there's more. They didn't just stop at ordering the appointment. They sent a very clear, very pointed message to the JPSC.
How so?
They imposed a fine. A hefty one, actually. Or must 1 lakh fine on the commission.
1 lakh rupees. That's significant. What was the reasoning?
The court laid it out very clearly. Their stance was basically a technical glitch on the JPSC's end is not a valid excuse. It's not a legitimate reason to deny a qualified candidate, especially the most qualified candidate, their rightful place.
So your internal mess-up isn't the candidate's fault.
Exactly. The court essentially said you can't use your own technical failure as a shield to block someone who met all the criteria and proved their merit.
Makes sense. Did they mention anything else?
They did highlight another relevant point, which kind of added weight to the injustice here.
What was that?
The court noted that candidates from scheduled tribes, like Manoj, are often exempt from application fees altogether in many government exams.
Ah, right. So even though this specific JPSC process might have required a fee.
Exactly. The fact that the payment was the point of failure for a candidate from a community that's frequently exempted just underscored how easily these kinds of technical or administrative hurdles could disproportionately affect people who might already face systemic challenges.
Yeah, that adds another layer of unfairness, doesn't it?
It certainly seemed to add to the court's clear dissatisfaction with how the JPSC handled it.
So the final order was appointment and the fine.
Yes. The court's final binding order was direct. JPSC must appoint Manoj Kumar Kachhap to the vacant assistant professor post, and they gave them a deadline within 4 weeks of the ruling.
4 weeks. So pretty decisive. A victory for him, definitely. But after how long a fight?
Years. From 2018 application to a 2025 final ruling, that's a long time fighting for what he earned.
Okay, so while Manoj's story is really powerful, persistence paying off, the court stepping in, it does make you look harder at the JPSC itself, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It holds up a mirror to the institution.
Let's talk about that a bit. The JPSC Jharkhand Public Service Commission, established back in 2000 when the state was formed.
Right, under Article 315 of the Constitution. Its core job is crucial. Recruit talent for government jobs.
Yeah.
Fairly, efficiently, transparently. That's the goal. It's meant to be a cornerstone of good administration.
But the reality, based on what we've seen, maybe hasn't always lived up to that ideal.
Well, the information suggests there's a history of issues. It seems this technical glitch incident, while specific, isn't entirely isolated from broader concerns about how the JPSC operates.
Like what? What else has come up?
Well, consider this one statistic that stood out. In its first 21 years, so up to around the time these events were playing out, the JPSC had reportedly only managed to conduct 13 civil services exams.
13.
Yeah.
In 21 years. Aren't those supposed to be annual?
They're intended to be annual, yes.
Yeah.
Conducting only 13 in over 2 decades.
Well, that paints a picture, doesn't it? It suggests significant delays, systemic problems, maybe bottlenecks.
Yeah, that kind of slow pace must impact thousands of hopeful candidates every year. Creates a lot of uncertainty.
Absolutely. And it's not the only time the Jharkhand High Court has had to get involved with the JPSC or similar administrative actions in the state.
So the court stepping in isn't unprecedented.
Not at all. The court seems to have played this oversight role quite a few times.
Any other examples? Sure. Just earlier this year, February 12, 2025, the court fined an IAS officer, a senior administrator, Rs. 50,000, for unlawfully canceling someone's mining lease. So again, the court intervening in administrative decisions, penalizing improper actions.
Okay, so overseeing general administration too, what about JPSC-specific issues besides Manoj's case?
Oh, yes. Back in 2021, the High Court did something pretty drastic regarding the JPSC's 6th Civil Services exam.
What happened then?
They canceled the entire merit list, the whole result.
The whole list? Why?
Because of serious rule violations and procedural irregularities in how the exam and selection process were conducted.
Wow. What was the fallout from that?
That decision was actually challenged but upheld by the Supreme Court in 2022. And the result was that over 120 candidates, people who had been selected, some maybe even started working, they were removed.
Over 120 people lost their positions. That's huge.
It is. So when you put these pieces together, the slow pace of exams, this huge cancellation of results, the court finding officials, and then Manoj's case where a glitch became the reason for exclusion.
Yeah.
A pattern kind of emerges, doesn't it? It suggests maybe ongoing struggles with administrative processes, transparency, consistency, and it really highlights the judiciary's role as a vital check when things seem to go off the rails.
And the people who feel the brunt of all this, the glitches, the delays, the canceled exams, the lack of reform, it's the young people, right? The aspirants in Jharkhand trying to get these government jobs.
Absolutely. They're the ones directly impacted. These are people trying to build careers, support their families, serve their state.
And you see their frustration sometimes.
Yeah. We know, for instance, in 2024, aspirants were actually protesting outside the JPSC office in Remche.
Protesting. What were their demands?
Faster results, basically. More transparency, just general improvements to a system they felt was inefficient and just uncertain.
And when you think back to Manoj's case, that simple technical payment failure, it almost derailed everything for him.
Exactly. And you have to ask, right, how many other candidates might face similar hurdles?
Things that aren't their fault.
Glitches, errors in processing, maybe just a lack of clear communication about what's happening with their application. How many face these without the means or maybe the sheer grit that Manoj had to fight it legally?
That's a sobering thought. These aren't just minor issues. They can literally block people's paths.
And that point the court made about scheduled tribe candidates often being fee-exempt elsewhere, it really hits home.
How so?
It just underscores how these seemingly small administrative or technical barriers, like a payment problem, can end up having a bigger impact on communities that might already be facing other systemic disadvantages. It raises questions about equal access, even when merit is proven.
Yeah, if the process itself has these tripwires, merit alone might not be enough to get through.
Right. It adds that extra layer of complexity to what fairness really means in practice.
So wrapping this up, bringing this deep dive toward a conclusion, what are the big takeaways here?
Well, we've definitely seen a specific case that shines a light on a system, the JPSC, that hasn't always perhaps functioned as smoothly or as fairly as it should.
But we've also seen the other side, the power of individual persistence. Manoj Kumar Kachhap's story is pretty remarkable in that regard. A long fight, but he won.
Absolutely. His case is a really strong example of pushing back against that bureaucratic inertia, challenging those administrative errors.
And it's a reminder, isn't it, that these technical errors, these glitches that sound so minor, they can have really significant human consequences, careers, lives.
Totally. And it really serves as a warning shot maybe, a clear signal to institutions like the JPSC.
What's the signal?
That they absolutely need to prioritize clear, robust processes. They need reliable technology. And maybe most critically, they need to be responsive and accountable when things do go wrong within their systems. The court's fine underlines that.
It can't just be, oops, technical glitch, too bad for you.
Yeah, exactly. There has to be accountability. So ultimately, this story isn't just about one job, one court case.
It feels bigger.
It's about justice, fundamentally. It's about about the pursuit of opportunity based on merit. And it highlights that crucial role of oversight, often judicial oversight, in making sure recruitment systems actually work fairly for everyone.
Everyone who applies, not just the lucky ones who avoid the glitches, or the ones determined enough to fight for years.
Precisely.
Digging into this JPSC ruling, it really makes you stop and think. We rely so much on technology now for these critical things, applications, payments, everything.
We do. It's embedded everywhere.
And this case shows what happens, not just when the tech fails, but maybe more importantly, when the human systems behind the tech, the management, the response to failures aren't adequate, aren't transparent, aren't fair.
Yeah, it really puts a spotlight on that interface between tech and administration, and it does raise a broader question, I think.
Which is,
how many other opportunities might be lost? Not just in Jharkhand, but anywhere. Lost not just to obvious glitches, but maybe to systems that just lack transparency or accountability, where there's no easy way for someone to say, hey, an error occurred and it wasn't my fault.
That's a really good point. What can be done?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? What steps could institutions anywhere in the world take to build administrative processes that are just more resilient, more transparent, more fundamentally just right from the start?
Something to definitely ponder as you go about your day.